meets, like the history has shown, after he meets with usually foreign delegates or U.S. presidents, like within the next couple of months, he feels he got something from that meeting that justifies being able to do whatever he wants, more or less. That's what happened with Syria. That's what happened with Crimea. And now they think that he's going to go after the Baltics or Poland, which are his targets.
Right, correct.
So as long as he gets what he feels that Trump is going to be able to be like, it's okay, do your own thing. He's going to, we need to watch him in the next couple of months for sure, because that's what history has shown. Would you agree?
I totally would agree. And I think, especially after today in the summit, there's a lot to get to. But in studio, we have more important things locally. Look, if you've seen this guy walking around your neighborhood, just trying to get your voice heard, Tim Hodge, in studio now. It's a pleasure to have you in here, man.
Thanks for coming in.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So if we can start off, man, I just wanted to ask about your ideals, your policies, what's your platform? Kind of introduce yourself to our listeners.
Sure. It's a pretty simple platform. Wanting to make sure that the main thing is food sales tax. It's too high. We have one of the highest food sales tax in the country. There's a lot of states that don't even have a food sales tax, and then we're sitting here with the highest in the country. And one of the questions you got to ask is, how do we get here? And over the last 10 years, that tax has spiked up twice. And so when you had Brownback and all of his allies cut government to a point where it was just basically dysfunctional. I mean, we have the school finance lawsuit that is basically saying that schools are unconstitutional. You have canned care that's being fined, and you have nursing homes not getting paid, hospitals not getting paid, mental health institutions not getting paid for things that they do for people. And so when the government needed money, what did they do? Did they go back and fix the Brownback experiment where they literally experimented with our lives and pocketbooks? Or did they raise your sales tax? And what they did was they raised your sales tax. And I think it's getting more clear to people that is not the fair tax that they think it is. If you're making $50,000 a year, a sales tax hurts you a lot more than if you're making $500,000 a year. Okay, so $1,000 to you means a whole lot more than $1,000 to someone making $500,000. So what I'm trying to say is, the sales tax is way too high, and it's hurting our working class folks much more than the people who got away with large tax breaks over the last 10 years. I mean, when the people in power chose to take away any kind of income tax associated with pass-through income, i.e. the LLC exemption, that devastated the Kansas budget. That's where the problems happened. And so when we put that back on in 2017, those super wealthy people are upset. They don't want to pay for government. And that's really the big question, is who pays for essential services? Do the rich get to lay it on the working class like they've done with property sales and income tax over the last 10 years? Or do finally the working class people stop getting tricked with all these hypnosis tricks that they use, and do they show up to vote and say, you know what, I'm sick of my paying $22 when my groceries are only $20. I'm sick of my property tax going up. I'm tired of the rich running off with loopholes and pass-through income with no tax on it. I'm tired of my payroll tax staying there, and other people don't have to pay that when you get over $120,000.
Right.
So all of those things, if people understood the tax code, they would riot in the streets. Why my trip up to a K-State football game I have to pay for, but someone else gets to deduct it?
Oh, yeah.
So my goal is to just take small bites, so to speak, and get rid of the food sales tax, just so that some working class people out there, their dollars stretch a little farther, so they can pay their water bill a little bit better, so they can pay for school clothes for their kids a little better. And it's not a lot of money, but $120 a year to a family, it's
huge to a lot.
It's $240 over a year is what you pay in food sales tax per household. And so that means a lot to a lot of folks.
This is gas. That's
Yes.
a lot of bills that are really important to a family. What's a way that you're trying to get that message conveyed? Because that is a very hard to follow message. I mean, and it has to do not with the way that you're saying it, but tax in general is a lot of people just start as soon as they hear taxes.
Right. But a lot of people get jacked up about it too.
That's true.
I mean, that's the way that they're going to use it against me this coming November. Because what they say is, Tim Hodge raised your taxes. No, what we did was we made business owners pay their fair share again. And if you look at tax rates, the income tax rates, they are lower than what they were in 2012. So we got the business owners back on. But here's the thing that I am having success, people understanding, is they get the difference between sales tax, property tax, and income tax. Because when the wealthy say, oh, those liberals want to just raise your taxes, tax and spend liberals. No, we are not. It's who gets taxed.
Yes, yeah.
And they got to understand that sales tax, I mean, that's the whole reason you had an American Revolution 200 some odd years ago. It was sales tax. They were paying tax on everything. And that's what needs to get us riled up. Our tax should not be 6.5% on anything for baby formula, for essential food, for that kind of stuff. It should be 0 for clothing. A lot of states have no tax on clothing, but that's how they gyp us. They literally nickel and dime us to pay for essential services, and that. So when I go up to doors and just say, hey, you understand that your food sales tax is the highest in the country because of the people that have been in power the last 10 years. And then I say, and they don't want you voting. They do not want you voting.
100% true.
If the same old people show up and elect the same old people, nothing's going to change. And I've been having some fairly good success with people. They go, you know what, that's true. And I carry my forms with me and say, look, 2 signatures and a driver's license, and you can change the world. And that's what we're doing. So I keep it simple like that. If I need to add something else, I say, and you know what? They don't want you having health insurance either. And one broken arm and you're in bankruptcy. So you need health insurance. You need food sales tax lower. You need your utilities lower. And the majority party's been sticking it to you for the last 40 years, and it's time to wake up, stop voting for these hypnotizing issues, and vote your pocketbook. For God's sakes, vote your pocketbook, if anything else.
Well, and I think the argument can also be made. What's the difference? The right side tends to deframe the, let's say, social services and people in poverty, and they say, it's welfare. What's the difference between that and someone like the Koch brothers not paying their share? I mean, there really isn't. I mean, that's just, we're giving that welfare to a higher, standard, or not standard, but a higher platform of people.
Well, those,
the rich.
Yeah, those, I always go back to that scene in Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. And there's a reason why those two, I'm going to say, creatures under the Ghost of Christmas Present's robe are named poverty and ignorance. And they chase Scrooge around and scare him to death and chase him into the grave, basically. That's where, if we want to go there, that's where we're going. If Charles and David Koch want to stand out there and, defund schools, defund DCF, defund the court system, and vilify all the workers associated there, and make us cannibalize each other and turn on each other, then they're going to get that scene out of that book, where poverty and ignorance take over, and it'll be even worse. They need to pay their fair share. I mean, The working class works in the factories, fights in the wars, does all the works, builds the roads, and then we get the highest income sales tax on food in the country. We get high payroll taxes. We get high property taxes, and they sit there and laugh their way to the bank. So it's time. It's time to start up, smarten up, and vote.
And a lot of these, the ultra rich, they'll also take that tax money that we give them, let them have, invest it into their own company. They create false markets and lead to recessions further down the road. I mean, it's sad as where if we had that extra money, we could do a lot more with it.
The idea that tax cuts spur economy can work, but it has to be given to the people who actually spend money here. If you give, let's say, $100 million in sales tax relief on food, okay, that $100 million will be spent by us here. It will not be $100 million, okay, as opposed to $100 million for a company owner, a multinational company. They will not spend. The last time I've seen a billionaire at the Coffin Museum here in Newton, because I live right across the street from it, is never. Right, they will not spend it here. That money will go to a French villa. It will go to a 30-day vacation in New York City or Paris. It will not stay here. If you give the equivalent of that tax cut to working class people, it will stay here and get spent. And that means there is your spur in the economy. If you cut taxes on property, there's your spur in the economy. Same with sales tax. So it can work, I mean, within reason. You can't go nuts with it, of course, but this whole idea where they say tax cuts and it'll be a shot of the adrenaline, if you only give it to 3,000 Kansans, which is what the
new tax plan?
The bulk of those tax cuts from 2012 went to, then yeah, they're going to hoard it. And it's more history. I mean, I love studying history, but the French Revolution was one of the charges by the French in 1789 was hoarding. Mm-hmm. The rich hoarded their money, and we have something like that going on right now.
No, you're right, and yeah, with the relief that you're talking about, that would grow small business. They could hire more people. There would be more jobs. 100% with you.
Let me go one more step with that tax, that LLC exemption. If you give a business owner an incentive to not pay any income tax on the money that they take home, that actually disincentivizes them to spend money on their workers' pensions, their workers' health insurance to fix the stuff. Because if you can take more money home tax-free, you're not going to reinvest it in your company. Yeah. And so that's one of those lies that they use, one of those sound bites, trickle-down economics or you're hurting small business. No, they have every incentive to spend money on their own business because any dollar they take home is taxed. If they take it home tax-free, then they lose the incentive to spend money on their business, and that actually hurts the employees. It hurts the business, and that was a backwards way of describing that whole LLC exemption.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. To change pace a little bit, one thing I mentioned when you came in is everyone, Newtonians have seen you walking around. Mm-hmm. I mean, it can be a hot weekend, and everyone's inside enjoying the air conditioner, going out, doing something. You're out there, busting your butt, getting people. You want people's voices heard more than they're aware that they want it heard.
Yeah.
You're doing all that, and we've got, and I don't want to put any words in your mouth or anything like that, but someone like Chris Koba, who recently has been, he's in a lot of trouble because he suppressed 18,370 voters by essentially saying that when they signed up at the DMV that they had to have two forms of ID. One had to be their birth certificate, and the other one had to be like a passport. And who carries that stuff with them? Mm-hmm. Judge ruled that he needed to let those people know that they are eligible to vote. She said it had to be done immediately, and his lawyers reported back to her, well, immediately is arbitrary, so we're not going to do that. And I mean, I've argued there's no other crime that you could commit where you could be like, well, I'll get back to you on that. But I don't want to go too far on that. What's your thoughts about, I mean, how, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but un-American is that? I mean, what's your thoughts on just Chris Cody? I apologize. I don't want to.
No, I noticed no editorializing there at all. The issue that Chris Kobach has is strictly legal, and he's got to follow the law. And he's he's layering on top of that. He's allowing a federal judge to tell him what to do, and because he is. There's no argument about it anymore. I mean, it's the case closed. He's suppressing the vote. They do not want normal people voting. And normal people have been so convinced that it doesn't matter at all that they vote, that they don't even register. And on my walk list, what I do is I can kind of tell who needs to vote. You know, if there's a tricycle in the yard, and a window that's not shut all the way, and a window unit going full blast, I'm knocking that door because they need help. And yeah, they hate it that I'm getting all these people to vote. They hate it, and I absolutely love the fat stack of ballots I bring in on Monday mornings to the county clerk's office. It's just a great feeling. I mean, yeah, it's hot out. I get that, but the default is if we don't do anything, they win. We have to get off our butts and get out there and tell people why it's so important to vote, or else we lose this. It's gone. They're working on getting rid of democracy at every level. They don't want us to vote, and they will throw little roadblocks like, okay, now you have to get a passport. Now you have to go find your birth certificate. And now you have to go blah, 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 even though everyone knows you and everybody knows you were born at this and that hospital here in America, etc. But, and you're under penalty of perjury if you're lying on your voter registration that you're a citizen.
And can I mention that there's only been 3 cases since 1995.
Yeah, but you also mentioned there's 18,000 plus cases of people being kept from voting.
Yes,
which is the wild and crazy comparison that I believe the judge in the case regarding Kobach just said. You found some double-digit whatever of evidence of voting fraud, but you got in the tens of thousands of people that you've kept from voting. So I think that was an easy case for them, but it's an obvious play by the majority party to keep people from voting. That's what they want. They want people to be disinterested. They want people to be working 2 jobs so that they can't figure out who to vote for. They want to keep people ignorant. They want to and not try to figure it out. And a lot of these people, I mean, they say they're too lazy to vote. They're not lazy. They're working 2 jobs. I mean, I knock on the door. The guy comes to the door. He's got to get to sleep because he's got to get to work at 4 in the morning.
Right.
Or he's just getting off work because he's worked second shift, and he's got to go back into Quick Shop to close it up. These folks are not lazy, or they are not disinterested. They are beat. They are beat down, and it makes me happy to go to their houses. So they need a voice.
It's truly awesome what you're doing. I mean, there really is something that is the epitome of being a good American. And what you're talking about with the voter, with them wanting less voters, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that goes back to the Reagan administration, that they had said that's the last thing we want is more voters.
Well, I don't know much about. All I know about Reagan is that's the time when I was 4 when he was elected. But that was my first memory of the debt clock in Times Square when he when they put that up, and it just showed when he cut taxes for the rich back then. All of a sudden, we had a huge American debt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everybody wants to hail him as this great money guy, but no, he blew our national debt up, and there's no argument there.
No, that's 100% true. Another question, kind of the newer, as we're seeing guys like Beto O'Rourke and Alexandria Cortez, and even the still want for Bernie Sanders, this new kind of Democrat coming, rising up. What are your thoughts on that? You know,
I just have one thing to really say on that, and that's if you look at the election of 2016, and if you look at our presidential, and I'm talking macro level here, the 30,000-foot view, our national election, we could not beat Donald Trump. That's all I'm going to say. And if our party leaders, when I say ours, I mean Democrats, if our party leaders cannot recognize that simple fact and not change with the tide and just keep beating your head against the wall, then yeah, we're going to get what we deserve. We have to be able to recognize candidates that can win. And we have to be able to canvass this nation, frankly, in order to find the voters. There are way more of us than them, but we don't vote. And if you get candidates that find the voters, they will win. The old guard Democrats, if you will, they gotta show up, because we lost in 2016, and we lost a lot. We lost the Supreme Court, all of these regulations that have helped with the environment, or helped with banks, or helped with lending, all those things that kind of try to look out for the small guy. They flipped that around to make it something that the small guy's supposed to hate, even though he has no idea what he's hating. But they are all designed for the large corporations to get away with more. But no, we have to start recognizing that there are some candidates that we should not be running. And these folks, if they can win these primaries, more power to them. And I hope they go on to be successful.
I couldn't agree more with you there. I mean, the fact that, Beto O'Rourke seems to be doing really, really well in Texas, and James Thompson, and Brent Welder, all those guys, and one of their big platforms is single payer health care, which almost 70% of Americans want, and that's just something they're being denied.
Right.
It's ridiculous. But what would you say if you were to and I know you're just you can't speak for everybody on the Democratic Party, but one of the big things that Democrats always get put in our face is we don't have a message. I hear that. I have to listen to both sides, quite often, too much, in fact. But what would you say is our message? Is a Democrat message going into 2019, 2018 midterms?
Well, that's a great question to ask a Kansas Democrat, because this West Coast, East Coast stuff, Schumer, Pelosi stuff, does not work here. Okay? And they would be well advised to shut up about the issues that they want to put out there. I know they're important issues, but we have got to get back to our Pabst Blue Ribbon beer factory workers, normal guys and gals, everybody. We've lost them. They're all wearing "Make America Great Again" hats, and they have no idea why. We've lost the normal person that works a full-time job and wants to come home, just wants a good daycare for their kid, wants to say hello to their partner or spouse, and wants to just be able to pay the bills pay their mortgage, and go play some softball in the evenings and have a good, fun time. That's what they want to do. And we've lost those people by not talking to them. We've gotten out to our fringes, and we've been real polite to all of those groups, but our mass numbers of voters, we haven't talked to them in years. I'd say decades. I mean, we lost. There's a reason why there's a phrase Reagan Democrats. They left back then because we got fringy. We got fringy, and we got beat up on social issues. So we've got what I want to say out there to the West Coast, East Coast Democrats is, don't do anything weird out there that's going to splash on me, because I'm doing stuff that's all pocketbook issues. Period. And then all that other stuff all those social issues will take care of themselves afterwards. But we want to make sure people can afford a house, have a great school for their kids, afford health insurance, afford their groceries, their utilities, all that stuff. We want to make sure their dollars stretch a little farther. And then maybe we're not going to be beating ourselves up over social issues so much, because we're actually
happy
in a good spot. We're happy.
Our social issues will solve themselves.
Yes.
No, I agree.
We have our Social Security funded. We have our pensions funded. We make sure that the companies pay us well. That's where we're at. We don't get ourselves stuck on crazy conflicts that never end, and it just keep us riled up and scared about our civil liberties, et cetera, et cetera. So no, we have got to get back to normal people that want to raise a family, have friends, have a job, pay their bills, and we need to help those folks out. So that's the issue, and this town of Newton is full of that. It's full of it. So, and I've met a lot of them.
I have a quick question on going back to what you were saying about how Democrats really need to just look and be like, "Wow, we lost to Donald Trump." Locally, we lost to Sam Brownback.
Yeah.
After he came out and publicly admitted to experimenting with us.
I don't know if there's anyone less popular.
Exactly, and we still lost. So my question is I know what you're doing, but do you feel like you have the support from your colleagues and you have a strong backing to get Kansas back on track?
I don't think people understand how successful this is going to be. And 2 years ago when we started, I'm not going to get specific on numbers because I don't want people to know.
Sure.
But we started with this campaign just to go door to door, knock doors, and say, look, we need you. They don't want you voting. We need you voting. Nothing changes. If the same old people go and elect the same old people, nothing changes. And the numbers are there in spades if we reach our people. They will not be there if the same old default happens. The other side of the aisle votes 80% of the time. Democrats vote 70% of the time. Unaffiliates vote 50% of the time. Non-registereds vote 0% of the time. Mm-hmm. So do the math. I mean, that's how you can win an election with only 30% of the voters. You can do, that's what Donald Trump did. Mm-hmm. That's what Sam Brownback did. We don't show up. We get too busy. Life happens. We're out of town. We get sick. We work at second shift. We forget. Mm-hmm. It's only open for 12 hours, the voting booth. And so the point that I'm trying to do is make it easier for folks to vote by saying, look, the counties can send you a ballot in the mail free of charge. And you just sign right here and get your driver's license out, and we got you. We'll get you covered. I'll turn this in tomorrow morning, and a lot of them take me up on it. I also make sure that they're registered at the right place so they don't run into static there. And I say, and I'm even going to give you a free sign in your yard just so that you remember this. And so a lot of them are going to have signs. And does the rest of the party get this? Who's to say? I don't think so, because we keep losing. Mm-hmm. the best sign that the party's going to get is if we start winning. I mean, like I said, we've got to reach out to the people who used to vote for us, but for whatever reason they're disgusted with us. Because I think we've got too fringy.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think Democrats need to go back to the platform of caring about jobs and getting people jobs. And
get jobs, pay us fair wages, take care of our schools, take care of our kids, make sure we got a court system that works and functions, and fill the potholes, for goodness sakes. Fill potholes, not budget holes, with our KDART money. Give us our pensions back. Give us some health insurance. These are people that are they're not sitting around doing nothing. They're working 40 hours a week, and for whatever reason, they're barely making ends meet. I mean, that's the problem. Why are Americans, why are Newtonians working 40, 50 hours a week and barely making it? That ain't right.
No, I agree. We've kept you here for quite a while. Before you go, though, man, I just want to ask you, where do you want to be? The perfect Tim Hodge world. Where would you be in 5 years?
I don't know.
Aspiration.
Retired.
You know?
Retired with lots of money. No. I mean, I'm practicing law right now, and it's going well. I'm taking care of business there right now, and this political thing you just get started on because you're irritated. You're sick and tired of seeing people get beat up, and you're tired of watching people just kind of thumb it in your face, say, "No, you can't beat me." Well, yeah, we can beat you, and the odds may be against us. The numbers may not make sense, but there's a path to win, and it just takes work. We can't just sit around and tweet and Facebook and sit in our echo chambers. We got to actually move the needle. And moving the needle, it means you go out and you get people to vote. That's it. And so my perfect place in 5 years of practicing law and doing what the Lord calls me to do. I don't know what that is, so we'll see where I land. But that's a good question.
Definitely understand. And everyone has until tomorrow's the last day to register to vote
for the primary, right?
Primary.
But I'm just going to keep registering people up for the general because I don't have a primary. Neither does my opponent. But we're gonna keep registering people all the way up to the middle of October.
That's awesome. And like I said, I can't think of anything more patriotic than what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that. We could. It's the only way to move the needle, and it's fun to do it.
Well, we definitely appreciate you for coming on. Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks for having me. Anytime.
Good one.